Kwaku, welcome to Q. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So, give me the journey here. I mean, most artists, when they make a record, they kind of hold themselves up in one place and make the record there, and it's a sign of where they were at the time. This is different for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would have preferred to do that, but life was happening, so
What do you
I
mean?
just kind of went with it. Well, I was sort of looking for a place that felt like home creatively.
Yeah.
And I had been in Toronto for a while. It didn't feel like it for me, so I was on a bit of a quest.
Toronto could be a funny place, eh?
Yeah, it's a lovely city, but it's different strokes for different folks.
I've heard people tell me, and I'm not from here, so you're not offending me, but like I've heard people tell me that it's a great place to get business done. It's not always the best place to be creative, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. I think I was looking for a better quality of life as an artist. And,
yeah.
And at the end of my first record, well, my second record, I felt like I had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So I just sort of went with it.
Where'd you go?
I went to Germany first.
Yeah.
I was doing a residency at this art museum. And then I figured I could probably try to live there. But then I thought about all the paperwork that I would have had to do, and I was like, I've already done it once for Canada. I'm not trying to do it again. So,
well, that's the thing. I want to talk about Germany in a second, but first I want to talk about what you just said. You already did a bunch of paperwork coming to Canada.
Yeah.
So you came from Ghana to Hamilton, Ontario?
Yeah, absolutely.
When you were how old?
I was 17 going on 18.
Why?
I went to school, actually. Yeah, I came here to go to school.
Which school?
I went to McMaster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I went to like a prep school for like 6 months and then went to McMaster.
Right.
Both schools were in Hamilton, like 10 minutes drive.
No disrespect to Hamilton. Again, I'm not from Toronto, so I don't have this perspective, but why Hamilton?
Why? Well, it's a bit of an interesting thing. I knew nothing about Canada aside from what the capital was when I was like in Ghana, after high school. And I had this friend who was, his parents were going to send him away for school, but he didn't end up going.
Yeah.
And well, like typically at the end of high school, most kids in Ghana, if they can, like they leave and go abroad to study. So I was looking for an opportunity to get out, and this friend of mine told me about the school, and I went to my parents. I was like, this is a place I could go. I knew nothing about the place. I knew nothing about the city.
Why did you want to get out?
I was curious about the world outside of my environment. I had always wanted to escape in some way, just to learn, just to absorb.
It wasn't like you felt constrained in any way. It wasn't. It's just funny you use the word escape, right? That's the only thing I noticed.
I did feel constrained because it is a constraining environment in some ways. I think there are limitations on travel if you're a citizen of certain countries in the world. So you're not exposed to as much.
Right.
I don't know if my 17-year-old self would have articulated it that way, but now I know that's kind of what I was feeling.
That's how you felt at the time. So hold on. So you show up alone in Hamilton?
Yeah.
What's that like?
I mean, I was excited because that's what I wanted. I wanted to leave home, so
Yeah.
I was excited about being in this city.
Was it winter?
It was January 6th, so it was
great.
It was a cool winter.
That's something to walk off the plane to, right?
Yeah. But I had nothing to compare it to. So I later discovered, in comparison to other Canadian cities, that Hamilton is, not on the top of the list, so to speak.
But compared to other Canadian cities, though, I will say Hamilton has generated some of the greatest art, especially music in this country. Did you fit in? Were you making music with the Hamilton scene?
I was making music on campus at McMaster. I was also playing several venues in the city, like Casbah, Pepper Jags.
Was it your own music you were making, or were you just playing in bands? Or
different bands? I put together different bands, and I was just, like writing my own material. Sometimes I just do covers of other people's songs.
Yeah, like what kind of stuff?
I was like a big Nas fan,
right.
Dead Prez fan,
right.
So that type of stuff.
So tell me more. But I'm so curious about that. So
okay,
then, when did this become not about going to school and playing music on the side? When did it be? When was it about? I want to actually do this. I want to make music for my life.
I think the transition was gradual. It was definitely gradual because I didn't think it was a possibility. But I was validated by the way people responded to what I was doing. Right. Whenever I'd perform, I got a little press in the city, and it was encouraging. I thought, maybe there's something to what I'm doing that could resonate. And I was also inspired by other artists as well. So it just sort of stuck with it.
One thing I find really interesting about you, and I think you and a couple of other artists have come in, and it's funny because how do I put this? I think we're around the same age. How old are you? You're like
35.
So you're 35. I'm 30. We were kind of starting out and playing music when the internet started to come in, right? And all of a sudden you were able to download music. It wasn't about just going to your record store all the time. I think that makes us think differently about genres than perhaps generations before us. That we were able to kind of download and hear whatever we wanted without being constrained to a specific genre. Because what I find interesting about you is that almost in every single review, people have a hard time saying what kind of music it is that you make.
Yeah, they keep trying. I don't know when that's going to stop. I'm kind of hoping people will just get past the genre thing.
They can't.
It's not a factor in how I express what I'm doing.
But a lot of people it is. A lot of people are like, I'm a rock band, I'm going to make a rock record.
Yeah.
I'm a rapper, I'm going to make a hip hop record, you know?
Which is fine. I mean, it's easier for them to do that. It'll be a lot harder for me to try to do that. I'll feel like an imposter if I stuck to just one description, you know? So
Yeah.
it's,
Do you feel constrained by genre at all? Do you feel constrained by any expectation when it comes to your music whatsoever?
I do not when I'm creating. I kind of get a little frustrated by the way it's presented because I think genre is a way to sort of filter out audiences because people identify with certain genres and they say, okay, I listen to this and this is my thing.
Yeah.
And I don't do world music or I don't.
Yeah, I like country, so I don't like rap.
Yeah.
I like rock, so I don't like classical music.
And I like to think that that's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have no way of knowing that. Yeah.
So then I want to go back to what you were talking about earlier. So kind of like in your peak expression, like the idea of genreless, just like I'm going to make the art that I'm going to make. You go to Germany. Germany, in many ways, I really see it like the home of that sort of movement. Like when I look at what David Bowie did in Berlin, when I look at what Lou Reed did in Berlin, I see it as a place that allows an artist to become an artist. Is that what that was for you?
A little bit. I wasn't there specifically to work with music. I was doing a residency. It was
Where?
more, it was in this Bavarian town called Bayreuth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a complicated part of the country.
It is a very complicated part of the country, historically and like in the present.
That's the most polite way I could say it. I mean, Bavaria, in many ways, that area of Bavaria, it was a place that fermented Nazism in Germany.
Absolutely. I mean, Bayreuth is like the home of Richard Wagner, a friend of Hitler's. So,
yeah, so to speak.
Yeah, you get a tour. Sometimes they tell you like that's a balcony that Hitler gave a speech on or something. Like that.
How does that feel?
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there to really critique the town. I was there.
I know, but did you feel it?
Well, psychologically, yeah. I mean, I tried not to think about it too much, but it is a heavy history.
Right.
But at the same time, I feel like some of the songs on the new record were written in Bayreuth.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that that environment inspired me in some way.
How so?
I think it's the interactions that I had with the people around me and the conversations that we're trying not to have. Because I find the Germans are very uncomfortable with talking about race head on.
Yeah.
Because they feel this guilt. And that's also, like, that leads to a lot of blind spots, you know. So they cannot really point out their unconscious biases and such because there's so much guilt and there's so much, like, pressure to not repeat the past, but in one specific way, you know. So then in other ways it just kind of comes across. I don't know if that makes sense.
There's some of that in Canada too, though.
A lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, the not wanting to talk about the negative parts of our history, not wanting to address it.
It's not looked at. You know, it's just like failure of whiteness to kind of confront this monster that it has created. You know, this monster of race, and that was very present then. I think that made me feel. It made me feel like different manifestation of anti-blackness in a way. So, and that was inspiring in a twisted sort of way. You know, it was inspiring to be an outsider in a different way. Because I experienced being an outsider in Canada, and then I experienced being an outsider in Germany, which is just like slightly different form of it. You know?
I mean, what was the museum you were working at in Germany?
It's a place called Eva Leber House. It's a contemporary African art museum.
So this I did when I was doing research into speaking with you, I found this really interesting, is that you were asked at this museum, if I'm not mistaken, to kind of speak your experience and speak your experiences with prejudice, speak your experience with racism, speak your experience with anti-blackness. And that just weighs on you after a while. After you am I right about that?
Yeah, well, actually, I had an experience of it while I was there working with them. I was on this bus, and essentially an immigration officer came on the bus and asked to see my passport, which I thought was, you know, really messed up, because it's like sometimes people get pulled over on the highway and ask for their papers because they're looking for African migrants. So any black face will do it, essentially, you know. All you have to do is just be a black person, and you attract this kind of attention.
Again, I want to point out, not only in Germany.
Yeah, but in this specific way of asking for your passport.
Sure.
I mean, in other
you.
places you get shot, like, you know.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's one is not better worse than the other, but
No, but I hear what you're saying.
yeah.
Sure,
And then I had to kind of repeat that incident several times when I would kind of interact with my host and kind of.
You mean just tell the story over and over again?
Yeah, well, they wanted to. It's this thing about, like, you know, you tell us how bad we are, kind of thing, and how can we fix it? Well, it's not my place to tell you how bad you are, or how to fix it. No. This is what's happening in your country, you know. And that was a heavy experience.
Okay, so did that make it into the record as well? Just like, not so much the experience. Again, like the experience is one thing, and I appreciate you telling me the story, and I hear you telling me the story, but I don't think necessarily we think a lot about the actual psychological arduousness of just making someone repeat an awful thing that happened to them.
Yeah. Well, I think I go to music to process all sorts of feelings as a way for me to sort of sedate myself, also to learn about myself. So it's not in the record in a direct sense because I'm trying to feel better from those types of experiences. That and all sorts of personal things that happen. So,
when you listen to have you listened back to your record since you made it?
Yeah, a few times, which is rare because I usually try not to. I just put it away till I have to play it.
Do you only hear the mistakes? That's how I am. I only hear the things I wish I
hear my voice.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't, you know, yeah, I'm critical. I'm critical about what I do. So,
do you trust that when people tell you it's good though?
Some people.
Who do you trust to tell you it's good?
Some people's opinions. You know, like my friend Joshua, who's a close collaborator. I trust his opinion a lot.
Right.
When he tells me something, I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
You don't have to trust me, and I don't expect you to. It is very, very good.
I trust you.
It's great, man.
You hear a lot of musicians.
I do. It's very, very good. When you listen back to it, do you hear what we've been talking about, like Toronto, Montreal, Germany? Do you hear this journey on the record, or does it feel more cohesive to you?
I was surprised that it felt cohesive. Not even to me, from the feedback I've gotten from other people, because when I listen to it, I relive certain experiences. I kind of go back to where I was when those songs were written or where they were recorded, and how I felt when they were being recorded.
Right.
So I don't necessarily hear the places. Like, let's just kind of relive those emotional experiences when I listen to them.
So
again, I don't listen to it that often, but when I do, like,
because it does sound like a cohesive package.
That's
me.
great. That was just my biggest concern, really.
Right, because what you don't want is a record to be a collection of the songs. You want it to be
absolutely. And also it was the first time I think I'd recorded in so many different locations. Well, not recorded, even written songs in so many different locations.
Do you think that's crucial for your creativity? Like, when you make another record, are you going to try and do that again? Do you think it made a better product that you were able to, not product in that weird capitalistic way, but like, do you think it made a better artifact of your creativity that you made it in so many different places?
There's a part of me that hopes that it doesn't, because that was not it wasn't necessarily a pleasant experience. This whole like nomadic thing. I don't think it's always. I mean, there's a part of me that always wants to find out what's next, wants to turn the page, wants to change my environment to trigger something creative. I'm hoping I don't need that to make good records, because then I'm trying to settle.
It'd be nice to sleep in your own bed.
Exactly, I'm trying to settle.
I feel what I've been hearing is the quest for home, and like the question for like where do I feel good, where do I feel accepted, where do I feel creative? Have you landed anywhere? Do you know where home is right now?
I've started to think Montreal is home, but I don't know yet. What I do know is the question is not so urgent anymore.
What do you mean?
It's not as urgent as it used to be. I think a couple years ago, I felt like I urgently needed to find a home. I needed to be in one place and be surrounded by a sort of community. But now it doesn't feel so urgent, and I suspect it's because maybe I've found bits and pieces of it in Montreal. Who knows?
Hey, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
It's a beautiful record. Thanks for talking to me.